of the hour, and we never close. As we come on the air, millions of folks are under all kinds of alerts and warnings to this 4th of July, from flash floods to extreme heat and even possible shark attacks. We've got reporters on the ground in New York City, in Miami, to tell us how things are shaping up ahead of some big fireworks shows to close out the holiday. Then, in just a few hours, we will hear from the president about some of the greatest issues facing the country as the White House marks Independence Day with its own celebration, what his message could be this evening. And one of the key issues that could come up, gun violence. After a long weekend of deadly shootings across the country, what we're now hearing about more violence overnight in Fort Worth, Texas, and in Philadelphia. And then breaking just before we came on the air, Israeli troops are now withdrawing from a refugee camp in Jenin in the occupied West Bank, just hours after a militant attacked people in Tel Aviv, hurting 8 people. Plus, in the tech world, the competition could be heating up, with Meta gearing up to launch a new app that sounds a lot like Twitter. We'll talk about what the new platform could look like and the rather interesting timing of all of this. That's coming up. Good day, I'm Tom Costello. I'm in for Hallie. Happy 4th of July. So the question at this hour is this: with millions of Americans out there enjoying the day, will they get to close out Independence Day celebrations with big fireworks displays lighting up the sky, or will it be a rainout? In the Northeast, we've got some isolated storms rolling in, bringing a big risk for flash floods. In Point Pleasant, New Jersey, there on the left, kind of a desolate beach. And then you can see on the right, clouds are rolling in, some more clouds lingering in New York City as crews get ready for that big Macy's fireworks show, which will kick off in just a few hours. And throughout the plains and reaching to the Rockies, 13 million people could be under the threat of severe storms. Now, the lightning put on its own show late last night in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, ahead of the celebrations. Also here in D.C. last night, really loud. If you're not in any of those risk zones, you might be feeling some brutal temperatures instead. 31 million people are right now under heat alerts, and that's got people across the country from South Florida to the Carolinas to Southern California heading to the beach in search of relief. But beware, we've got elevated warnings and security concerns along some coastlines after shark sightings and even a few attacks. Take a look now at this wild video. A hammerhead shark right there spotted off the coast of Surfside, Florida, a little bit earlier, getting really close to a person who was paddle boarding. Stay with the shot. Stay with it. Wow, that's something, right? And on New York's Long Island, emergency responders reporting that there were 2 separate shark attacks involving 2 teenagers. The first at Robert Moses State Beach, there on your screen. Then in a few hours later, down the shore at Kismet Beach. Both teens are now expected to recover. So a lot to get to, and we've got our teams in place. So Antonia Hilton is in Queens, New York. Guad Venegas is in Miami Beach, Florida. And Michelle Grossman's got our forecast. We're going to start with Antonia. Folks there hoping to see fireworks, not storms in the skies tonight. So how are the celebrations looking in New York right now, Antonia?
You know, Tom, for a while, it was a little dicey here. There were showers. We were hearing thunder overhead. But as you can see, the sun is starting to come out, and people down the block from me have started drinking and partying already. So I think that they are feeling pretty confident that the show is going to go on. And here's what you can expect. There are going to be 60,000 shells launched from barges all along the East River behind me here. And Macy's is promising their biggest show yet. This is already the biggest fireworks show in the entire country. This is the 47th year. And they're saying there's going to be 30 different colors and shapes, and that they're trying to one-up themselves, essentially. You're going to be able to watch that tonight on NBC News. The show is expected to start at around 9:25. And unless there is lightning and severe weather, they say it's going to go on. Take a listen to the executive producer describing some of what you can expect.
Over 70% of our show this year is going to have new animations. So we've got crackling pistols, and we've got new ghost features that are going to have up to 4 different color hues as they cascade their way and make their way down to the water's edge.
And this is part of a big tradition here in New York. People are excited about the fireworks because it's one of the low-cost ways that people of all walks of life here celebrate. They get ready, they bring blankets. People have been waiting to get their spot by the water for hours in many cases, or making reservations at restaurants that have a great view. And so people are excited that it's looking like we are going to be able to make this one happen, Tom.
All right. Well, as you know, this is one of the biggest and busiest travel weeks in years. Not only that, but you've got all this bad weather across big portions of the country. How is that affecting plans at this point?
That's right. And a lot of people in this city are tourists who are coming to these celebrations tonight and either heading out very late on the road or planning to fly out early tomorrow. And what we're hearing from all the airlines is that in some cases, the weather is impacting flights. Already there have been about 2,500 delays, just under that, and then over 400 cancellations. So if you are planning to head to the airport or out onto the roads tonight, please take a look at conditions, particularly if you're in a region like this one where there have been flood warnings all day and you are driving. You need to be extra careful, make some phone calls, and make sure that you have backup plans in case things get delayed or canceled.
Yep. Check the airline app. Antonia, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Guad Venegas, who has pulled the short straw today. He's on Miami Beach. Guad, you're at exactly the spot that people flock to in extreme heat. Big crowds today?
Correct. Yes. You're talking about people who traveled for the weekend. Miami Beach is the #1 beach city destination, according to Hopper.com, because of the hotels and also the flights that were booked to Miami International Airport. They said, Tom, that they were prepared to service about 1 million passengers throughout this holiday weekend. And yes, we've had crowds in Miami Beach, up and down southern Florida, here in the coastline. Let's also keep in mind that Florida has the most beaches in the continental United States, so it's a big destination for tourists. And we've had conversations with lifeguards here today because they do have to pay close attention, especially to the tourists that are not too familiar with the heat, with the sun, and of course, with the ocean, some of the rip currents that could be dangerous. Here's part of the conversation that I had with one of the lifeguard supervisors earlier today.
Hydration is important. Keep the consumption of alcohol in check. Shade, it's key. If you're dehydrated, and if your consumption has been high, if you go in the water, you're probably going to become a drowning victim.
And Tom, we've been talking about the weather for the last few days. I will say this, it's normally hot in South Florida this time of the year, but it's hotter than usual here. Most of the day today, that sand was too hot for anyone to walk in it barefoot. It has cooled down now as people look forward to the fireworks tonight, Tom.
Yeah, you know, you're getting paid to stand there on Miami Beach. That's not bad, Guad. Listen, let's talk about sharks, though, can we? Because it's also been a hot spot for shark sightings and bites in Florida this year. I learned a few weeks ago, actually, that the odds of being killed by a shark are about 1 in 4 million. You're more likely to die from a vending machine falling over on you. So what more do we know now about the recent bites and attacks? And are folks there on Miami Beach concerned at all?
Tom, let me also add that earlier this week I had a conversation with Dr. Chris Lowe from the Shark Lab at Cal State University in California, Long Beach, who studies sharks. And he also told me you're more likely to win the Powerball, or it's the same to win the Powerball as the probability of getting bit by a shark, just so we get a clear understanding. And I think we have to get good context when we see or when we hear about these shark encounters, because often what's reported is that a shark came nearby a beach, near a swimmer, near a paddleboarder. Earlier, you showed a video of someone in a paddleboard south of us. That was along the shore, but I've been told that that wasn't right off the beach. That was a little inland. And a lot of these encounters have been in areas where these sharks are known to migrate up and down the coast. There's a lot of things we have to think about. Dr. Lowe, when we had this conversation, told me something very interesting, Tom, that sharks often come around people, but sometimes they will learn that humans are not food and they just swim away. So most of the time, sharks come around and they go their way. They are trying to understand why we've had these attacks that have taken place in some places around the country, Tom.
I've been told it's usually mistaken identity. They think it's a seal or something. But Guad, thank you. Guad Venegas, who's, again, pulled the short straw today. NBC News meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us now. All right, Michelle, let's cut right to it. Who is going to see the fireworks tonight and who won't?
Hi there, Tom. So good to see you. Well, radar is lit up right now, so we're looking at a lot of lightning out there, nature's own fireworks. The good news in some spots, we'll get to these cities, we're going to see that sun settle down. That's going to lose its power for some of these storms, but some will keep the storms in the forecast. So taking a look at radar right now, you can see lots of lightning all up and down the East Coast into the Southeast, the Gulf Coast states, back to portions of the Northern Plains, the Upper Midwest. So really active at this hour. And as we go throughout the rest of tonight, we're still looking at 13 million people at risk for severe storms, especially where you see the yellow and orange shading. So throughout portions of the Central Plains, back through the Rockies, the Upper Midwest, we could see winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour, bringing down trees, also some power lines. We could see some hail, even the chance of a few tornadoes. So certainly fireworks are going to be impacted there. Now, as we get towards the Gulf Coast states, we're looking still at the chance for some isolated storms. It's all about location. We could see a pop-up storm at any time, but it's depending on where you are. But hopefully this is the good news. We're looking at New York City, Boston, D.C., Philadelphia, hoping to dry out or continue to dry out, where we're seeing some of these storms by the 7, 8 o'clock hour, because once we start to see that sun setting, we're going to lose the power for some of these storms. But we could still see some lightning in portions of the Upper Midwest and also the Central Plains. Tom?
Interestingly, I just read, though, that we've had far fewer fires this year because it's been so wet. Give us the national, real quickly, a look at tomorrow. What are we looking at tomorrow?
Yeah, so for tomorrow's forecast, we're looking at still severe weather throughout the middle of the country. We're looking at millions impacted. That number is going to grow as we look towards tomorrow through portions of the Upper Midwest. Chicago is going to be impacted, so certainly some travel delays there. Still looking at some showers and storms in portions of the Gulf Coast as well. Back to you.
Michelle, thank you. Appreciate it. This long holiday weekend has been marred once again by deadly shootings in Pennsylvania and Texas. In Fort Worth, police say at least 3 people were killed, more than a dozen wounded, in 2 separate shootings. One shooting occurred just after midnight at a 4th of July party attended by several hundred people. Arriving police found multiple victims in a parking lot. 3 of them died. A suspect has not been identified. In an apparent unrelated incident, 3 adult men were injured when a large group fight led to a shootout between at least 2 gunmen. And in Philadelphia, police say a man is in custody after a gunman wearing a bulletproof vest opened fire in a neighborhood, killing 5 people, wounding 2 others. The surviving victims are in stable condition. 2 other people were injured by shattered glass. These latest shootings come after a mass shooting in Baltimore over the weekend that left 2 dead, 28 wounded. A nightclub shooting in Wichita, Kansas left 9 injured. And a shooting at a block party in Indianapolis left 1 person dead, 4 others injured. We've got team coverage on all of this. NBC's Rahema Ellis is in New York, but we begin now with NBC's Priscilla Thompson in Texas. Can you give us an update, Priscilla, on the situation in Fort Worth? Have police named a suspect or a motive?
Yeah, Tom, we just got an update from police, and they are saying that according to what they have learned from witnesses, they believe that there were several unidentified males that fired indiscriminately into this crowd of people. Still no word yet on who those suspects are that they are looking for, but police say that they have gotten leads and they have been tracking these leads. And they're also making a distinction that there was a block party that was held in that neighborhood earlier in the night, but that after that block party ended, it looks like a group began together in a different part of the neighborhood, and that's where the shooting took place. But police still describing a chaotic scene where there were tons of people there on foot in vehicles when they got there, and really having to assess this crime scene, but still trying to figure out any answers on motive and, of course, who committed these crimes. Tom?
Are all of the victims in their 20s? I've been hearing that on almost all these shootings, the victims have been in their teens, 20s, maybe early 30s.
So we have not yet gotten confirmation on the exact ages of all the victims from the medical examiner, but we do know that there were 11 victims in all, 3 of them who were killed, 8 who were hospitalized, and we know that at least 1 of those victims is a juvenile. And we heard from the mayor of Fort Worth about the impact that this is having on this community. She was saying that even 1 life lost is too many. I want to play a little bit of what she had to say about this.
But it's senseless, man. You know, you had people come in to a family environment with guns and start shooting randomly. And we've got to be better than this as a community. And I know Fort Worth can be a better example, but my heart is broken today.
And police have also said that they do not believe any of the victims are suspects at this time. And they said that also as we head into the holiday tonight and the celebrations tonight, they have additional police on hand to hopefully help make people feel a little safer in the wake of this just incredible violence on Monday. Tom?
Okay, Priscilla, thank you very much. NBC's Rahema Ellis is following the mass shooting in Philadelphia. Rahema, police now have arrested 2 people.
Well, Tom, what we understand is they've arrested 1. As this investigation is unfolding as we speak, one of the things we found out is that the second person whom they thought they were going to have in custody, they say now acted in self-defense, firing at the shooter in order to, they believe, prevent that person from doing more harm. Police got this case last night, a radio call. They responded to a call of shots fired. When they arrived, they found that there were several people on the ground who had been wounded. Authorities took some of them to the hospital while police pursued the shooting suspect. They say this person who has caused trauma in their community and really disrupted the whole notion of what it means to have a holiday. Listen to the police commissioner.
What happened last night in our Concession neighborhood was unimaginably disgusting and horrifying. On what was supposed to be a beautiful summer evening, this armed and armored individual wreaked havoc, firing with a rifle at their victims, seemingly at random.
Seemingly at random, what they say now is that 5 people were killed, 5 men between the ages, and 1 a teenager, between the ages of 15 and 59 years old. 2 children were hurt, 1 a toddler, only 2 years old, and a 13-year-old. They were shot in the leg. They are expected to recover. But police say this also. As a result of the news conference, we learned this. There were 4 people they found on the ground in the street in Philadelphia. Several hours later, they found another victim inside his home. They now believe that the last person they found was the first person who was shot. They also don't think that that was random, but the investigation is continuing, and arraignment, they think, will come tomorrow for this 40-year-old suspect. Tom?
Gun violence is tearing this country apart, and we will continue to document every one of these mass killings as this country continues to grapple with it. Rahema, thank you very much. At this hour, President Biden is at the White House hosting a July 4th barbecue, part of a full day of events to mark the nation's independence. But this holiday has been interrupted by a potential legal setback for the president. Just this afternoon, a federal judge barred parts of the administration from contacting social media platforms about online content. Now, the ruling came in response to a lawsuit brought by Republican-led states alleging that the White House went too far in its efforts to curb content that challenged vaccines or threatened elections. The judge said certain departments should not reach out to companies like Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram for, quote, the purpose of urging, encouraging, pressuring, or inducing any manner the removal, the deletion, the suppression, or the reduction of content containing protected free speech. The ruling singles out several government agencies, including the Department of Justice, of State, the CDC, as well as HHS. NBC's Mike Memoli is by the White House right now on this holiday. So, Mike, the music's behind you with the president's barbecue. He has made combating disinformation a big part of his agenda. How much of a blow is this judge's orders to those efforts?
Well, at the heart of this case, Tom, is what happens when constitutionally protected rights like the right to free speech come into conflict with public health and safety. And in this case, based on the very long list of individuals and agencies that a judge is saying that the administration cannot be in contact with social media companies, it has to do with what happens when, especially as it relates to COVID-19, the White House, the administration feels that the public health and safety is potentially harmed by the spread of disinformation here. And so that's really at the heart of what this is about. It's interesting because this all takes root in what you may remember as the Twitter files, where an author went through communications that were between some in the White House and the Biden administration and these social media companies, asking them to remove certain cases of disinformation about COVID-19. Now, the White House in a statement says that the Justice Department is reviewing this decision. They note that the administration has also taken steps to promoted responsible actions to protect public health and safety and security, but also noting that these social media companies have a critical responsibility here to be in control of what's on their platform. And also, they noted that this is about their independent decisions to do so. It's worth noting, Tom, as well, as we go back to those Twitter files, that there were also cases uncovered in which the Trump administration had reached out to some social media companies like Twitter, asking them to remove posts that were critical of the former president here. So the right to free speech is an issue in both administrations, but this case is putting a spotlight, at least on the Biden administration's use of this.
Okay, Mike, I want to ask you about breaking news out of the White House, and that is that there has been a small amount of cocaine found there. That, according to the Secret Service, the cocaine was allegedly found in some area of the West Wing. Any idea where it was found? Any idea who might be behind it? Is the Secret Service investigating now?
Yeah, that's right. It is an investigation being led by the Secret Service. It began on Sunday evening when a uniformed officer, part of the uniformed division of the Secret Service, was conducting a routine patrol and discovered this potentially hazardous subject. It was ultimately ruled not to be a hazardous subject, but ultimately, obviously, an illegal substance here. And so, based on some new reporting just in from our colleague Kelly O'Donnell, we learned that this was found in a working area of the West Wing, but more specifically an area where an individual who might have been coming in from the outside, a guest, somebody coming in for a tour, for instance, would have left some of their personal belongings before going on that tour. So this narrows the real estate in the White House in terms of not the executive mansion or the residence or the executive office building, the West Wing specifically, but not necessarily the individual who may have been the person who brought this into the White House, Tom.
All right, Mike, stay on it, will you? Mike Memoli, who's at the White House for us. Breaking news right now out of the Middle East. The Israeli military has begun withdrawing troops from a militant stronghold in the West Bank, winding down, it says, an intense two-day military operation that killed at least 12 Palestinians. And it comes after at least 8 people in Tel Aviv were injured when a man drove his car into a crowd of pedestrians at a busy shopping area. Palestinian militant groups called that attack a heroic response to Israeli raids on the Jenin refugee camp. NBC's Matt Bradley is joining us now from the region. Matt, what more are we learning about Israel's withdrawal of its troops and the timeline?
Yeah, we just heard that just now, actually, Tom. And, you know, we think we saw some of the last gasps of this raid, this really what was the largest raid in the West Bank by the Israelis in probably 20 years, ever since the Second Intifada. So, you know, this was a momentous event, and we can't forget just how big this was. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is now in power once again with a very right-wing government, with right-wing ministers, all of whom seem to be celebrating this move. So, you know, the real issue here is whether or not this is going to be spreading or adding to violence. Right now, we've seen this isolated not only just in the city of Jenin, and I'm in the West Bank right now, not far from Jenin, but whether or not this is going to involve other groups. We heard that you mentioned that Palestinian groups, militant groups, had celebrated this attack in Tel Aviv. That was specifically Hamas, which runs the Gaza Strip. Now, if Hamas decides to retaliate more, as they have in the past, by firing missiles into Israel, that could be a major risk of escalation. Tom?
In the meantime, the prime minister is promising more that could come, right? More operations. Where do things go from here?
That's right. He basically called this a success, mission accomplished, and said that if you know, there is a need, that they will go back into a place like Jenin or maybe elsewhere in the West Bank. That's unclear. So they could be also escalating a fear of escalation from the Israeli side. So I don't think that, even though we're seeing these Israeli troops pulling out of Jenin after this extraordinary operation, I don't think we've seen the end of the violence here, and this could easily flare up once again.
Matt Bradley in Jerusalem. Thanks, Matt. Coming up from us, new warnings tonight about CTE, what we're learning about the first female pro athlete diagnosed with that degenerative brain disease. Plus, Brazilian soccer star Neymar was just fined $3 million. But it's not because of anything that happened on the field. We're going to explain that coming up in our 5 Things. Stay with us. We're back, bottom of the hour. New developments in the tech world today in what looks like a direct shot at competing with Twitter. Facebook's Meta is gearing up to launch a new conversation app called Threads this Thursday. Meta describes the app as Instagram's text-based conversation app. And it seems like Mark Zuckerberg is trying to strike while Twitter is down, you could say. News of the launch comes after a series of chaotic changes at Elon Musk's Twitter, including his decision to limit the number of tweets users can view in one day. Unverified users only able to read about 1,000 tweets a day. That's all? I don't know. While verified users, the ones who pay for that blue check mark, they can see up to 10,000 posts a day. The move has outraged a lot of Twitter fans. You can see a preview of Threads right here. Keep your username, find your followers, connect your conversations, and share your point of view. That sounds familiar, right? That's how Meta is now branding its new approach. Let's bring in NBC's Steve Patterson for more on all of this. So, Steve, first of all, I don't know how, if you're viewing 1,000 or 10,000 tweets a day, you can do anything else with your day. But can you compare this Threads app to Twitter? Is it going to pull Twitter users away? And what is this talk about Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg getting into a cage fight, but maybe now something else that's a little more civil? Do they hate each other this much?
Look, first of all, it's the fight that everybody's talking about that nobody is actually sure it's going to happen. They actually were jibing back and forth over the internet about an actual MMA-style fight. That's the physical fight that, may not materialize, but it sure is interesting to talk about, right? The real fight is online. It's in the digital space. It's the fight for your mind share, the fight for your phone, the fight in the boardroom over market share. That's what these two are really fighting about, and I think that's the more interesting topic. So, Threads. It is supposed to be, as you laid out, just like Twitter, as far as we know. We don't know a lot because it's not out yet. It comes out on Thursday, right? But people are finding that they can go to that app store and they can kind of pre-download it. And it's supposed to be, according to what everybody's seen in pictures, just like Twitter, almost like a carbon copy or so. And I think it points to the fact that the fight is really about the fact that these two tech giants are sort of waning in their own way. And a lot of these tech operators that have systems that are sort of Twitter-likes are smelling blood in the water, and Zuckerberg is one of them. After all these controversies with Musk in the workplace, with limiting the views now, putting everything behind a paywall is sort of a big one, and that's sort of the reason why these things may be coinciding, people feel. Zuckerberg feels like he can step in and say, hey, here's an alternative. It's called Threads. It's great. He pitched it as a sanely run platform. That is a literal quote from Zuckerberg. So you can tell sort of where the focus is. Will it work? We don't know. I think we're going to learn a whole lot more on Thursday from the announcement and find out if people are actually willing to trade off. But you're talking about a space in Twitter that has such a huge market share. So many people are on it. So many people's lives and work lives are embedded with it. I think it's going to be a difficult task, but he's not starting from zero. This is Instagram threaded into this new app that could already have a built-in user base. Tom, we'll have to see.
Big egos. I don't know. Zuckerberg looks more ripped to me than Musk. I'd put my money on Zuckerberg. But listen, Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey tweeted a pic of the data that users will have to share for Threads, to which Elon Musk replied, highlighting it to his 150 million followers. So is Twitter's private policy really any different? And do consumers even care about privacy at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, they are different as far as sort of the direct way that Facebook collects data and shares it versus more the indirect way that Twitter may do it. But I mean, as far as you and I are concerned, we should all know that all of these tech companies have something on us. They're all collecting our data. Do people care? I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're in a new sort of digital age where you have these digital natives and Generation Z that is coming up. They just want a user-friendly interface to where they can interface their content in an easy way. And I think that's what these tech companies have found. That's the way they operate. And collecting data is big business. I think they're going to do it regardless of the stink that we all raise. Tom?
All right, buddy. Thank you. Steve Patterson following the cage fight out there in L.A. Let's get you over right now to the 5 things, our team things that you should know about. Number 1, NATO's Secretary General is staying on the job for another year. Norwegian Jens Stoltenberg's term has now been extended through October 24. He's been in office since 2014, making him the second longest serving Secretary General. NATO was supposed to name a successor in about a week, but the countries could not agree unanimously on a replacement, and they all really Hallie Love Jens. Number 2, for the first time, CTE, that's chronic traumatic encephalopathy, that has been diagnosed in a female professional athlete. As you know, it's a degenerative brain disease that many experts believe is caused by repeated head injuries. The latest Australian rules football player, Heather Anderson, was diagnosed with CTE. Experts say it could lead to a greater focus on researching that ailment in women. Number 3, take a look at this. The Ubinas volcano is spewing ash in Peru. Explosions up to 1,800 feet high. It's the most active volcano in Peru. More than 2 million, make that 2,000 people, live in nearby villages. Shelter houses have now been set up for the evacuees. Number 4, stamp prices are up. First class forever stamps will be 66 cents starting Sunday. That's up from 63 cents. And it's the second stamp price hike this year. They last went up in January. Now, the U.S. Postal Service is citing rising operational costs and a, quote, previously defective pricing model. Other mail services will also get more expensive on Sunday. Number 5, Brazilian soccer star Neymar was fined more than $3 million over renovations at his mansion outside Rio de Janeiro. He's been accused of illegally building an artificial lake, which authorities there say violates local environmental rules, but he can appeal. When we come back, it's a day that's filled with emotion, heartbreak, but also resilience in Illinois. How Highland Park is marking 1 year since that deadly 4th of July shooting there. Stay with us. We're back. The city of Highland Park, Illinois, is today marking 1 year since that senseless 4th of July mass shooting at a parade that killed 7 and injured dozens.
This is a day filled with emotion. Well, I am so proud of how our community has supported one another these last 12 months and today.
The community is gathering for remembrance and a walk, and later, instead of a fireworks show, which can be triggering for some survivors of gun violence, there will instead be a drone show.
I've never liked loud noises. I now really don't like loud noises. You know, but I definitely see myself kind of looking over, being more careful, more aware of my surroundings, because you never know what's going to happen. I didn't expect this to happen in Highland Park. No one did.
NBC's Jesse Kirsch is in Highland Park for us. Jesse, this massacre really scarred that community, right?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. 7 people were killed, dozens were injured in this shooting, which again occurred on July 4th in the middle of an Independence Day parade. And I think it came into clarity for me on the drive over here and seeing a family walking by with 2 little girls with, I believe one of them had on, you know, a stick-on tattoo of an American flag and headbands. Again, you can imagine families like that would have been coming here last year for a similar celebration, having no idea what was going to unfold. People had shirts on today memorializing what this community went through, but there were also the Stars and Stripes on display. And I think that really gets to what today was about here, was about remembering the lives lost, honoring the lives forever changed, but at the same time, not letting what a gunman did here define this community. And that is something that we heard from officials as well as from some people in this community. Here's what one person had to say earlier.
The last thing I want is for this to ruin a great tradition. I don't want the kid that did this to win. I want us to be able to go back and celebrate, but it will never be quite the same.
So again, Tom, a blend of memories on what is a forever changed holiday in this community.
You know, and Highland Park is just the latest community that has had to take steps to try to move forward and walk that fine line, as he just suggested, right? So what else have they done? This is an important, poignant day, but what other steps have they taken over the last year?
Yeah, and more broadly here in the state of Illinois, there is now an assault weapons ban that was passed and signed by the governor. That is something that has been going through the federal courts system. And while all that's unfolding, on the 1-year anniversary of the shooting here in Highland Park, there's a renewed push by some in this community for a federal assault weapons ban. So similar conversations we hear, unfortunately, far too often in this country, Tom.
Indeed, Jesse, thank you very much. Jesse Kirsch for us. Coming up tonight, millions of Americans are traveling today. Gas prices are down, but that's not all good news. What you should know before hitting the road. Plus, why roller coaster riders in Wisconsin were stuck. Look at that. Upside down for hours. Talk about a nosebleed. That's later in the local. Welcome back. Of course, the 4th of July means massive travel numbers, and today it's expected that more than 50 million Americans are traveling one way or the other for the holiday. Over 4 million taking flights over this extended period. We've talked about that nightmare scenario playing out at airports around the country. So is it better to be driving instead? Some 40 million people hitting the roads over the extended period. This year, gas prices are working in their favor. Take a look at the numbers. Gas prices way down from last year when the average pump price was almost $5 a gallon. This week, the average is about $3.50 a gallon. Now, that's a welcome relief amid stubborn inflation numbers. To be clear, it's not the cheapest prices have ever been. They're still higher than 2 years ago. So how will this all play out over the rest of the summer? We bring in now Clint Henderson, managing editor at The Point Sky. Can you give us a sense now? What's the travel outlook for the rest of the summer? And by the way, gas prices are going down, so people may be taking advantage of that. But other aspects of travel are still pretty expensive, right?
Yeah, it's actually not only sold out this summer, but it's also really expensive. Now, gas prices are helping a little bit. In fact, airlines are seeing cheaper fuel prices, which eventually could mean slightly smaller ticket prices for passengers. But in general, it's boomtown USA when it comes to travel.
All right, now back to the gas prices here. They're cheaper than a year ago, but, you know, I'm a bit of a geek on this stuff, and I looked up the inflation-adjusted gas prices numbers, and we actually paid more in the 1980s. I mean, even in the late 70s, all the way through the 80s, we paid more on an inflation-adjusted basis. But this is a pocketbook issue that hits everybody every day, right? So how can we save at the pump? Are we talking special credit cards, different car rentals? What do you recommend?
Oh, there's all kinds of tools in the toolbox, and it's kind of fun to try to maximize the discounts. You can stack things. There's all kinds of tricks you can do. First thing I would say is if you go to the same gas station over and over, make sure you're signed up for their rewards program. Shell has a fuel rewards program. You just want to make sure if you're joining those programs that you're not paying more at the pump just to go to a certain brand of gas station. So watch that. But you can also get a credit card that gives you cash back or points back for gas purchases. That's a way to put something back in your pocket for all that money you're spending on gas. And then there's apps like Gas Buddy. You can even just do a Google search, cheapest gas. There's all kinds of ways you can find the best price per gallon. And then if you stack that with a fuel rewards program and a credit card, you're maximizing your spend. Also, those big box retailers, a lot of them have gas programs where gas is substantially cheaper. So there's things to do out there.
I was around in the 80s, I remember, and it costs a lot of money to fill up my little car. But anyway, the times, they keep rolling on. Clint, thank you. Clint Henderson, managing editor at The Point Sky. NBC covers hundreds of stories each day. Because you couldn't possibly read, watch, or listen to all of them, our bureau teams have done it for you and for me. This is what they tell us is going on in their regions. We call this segment The Local. So from our Northeast Bureau, a woman from Massachusetts who was reported missing was rescued after she was found stuck in the mud at a state park. Police say she'd been trapped, apparently, for a long time, for days before hikers found her. Police got to her with their ATVs. They said she was conscious and alert when they pulled her out. From our Midwest Bureau, Wisconsin, actually, imagine this, stuck upside down for hours on a roller coaster. The coaster just stopped mid-ride, that according to our local affiliate. Emergency crews rescued the riders. The fire department says there was a mechanical failure, even though the ride was recently inspected by the state. And back out to our Northeast Bureau again. The show must go on, right? Or at least the hot dog eating contest. After a rain delay, superstar Joey Chestnut ate his way to another win at Nathan's famous 4th of July hot dog eating contest on Coney Island. Where else? He downed 62 hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes. Miki Sudo won the women's contest, 39.5 hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes. A memory to relish for another 12 months. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's also not the 4th of July without baseball. And right now, you know, we can't talk about baseball without talking about Angel superstar Shohei Ohtani. He's really one of a kind, a top pitcher and a record-setting power hitter. He's having a season that we've pretty much never seen before. Check this out. He hit 15 homers in June alone. That's a team record. And he's just now the second Major League Baseball player ever to hit 30 or more home runs and 5 or more triples before the All-Star break. The other player, the legendary Willie Mays, 1954. And he's also an ace on the mound. Now, he's got 7 wins on the season and earned a run average of 3.02 and 127 strikeouts, third in all of baseball. Joining me now to talk about all of this, making the season, is Sam Blum, staff writer for The Atlantic, who covers Ohtani and the Angels. Sam, can you put some of these stats in context for us, especially those of us who don't follow baseball as closely as you do? How remarkable is this guy's performance?
I mean, it's unprecedented, and you mentioned Willie Mays just in that last segment, and I think that's the thing with Ohtani. It's interesting, everything kind of transcends what we're as baseball fans, as baseball reporters, people that just watch the game, kind of just how crazy it is. It transcends the game. You can mention him in the same breath as Babe Ruth, but I think you could also make a very good case that he's had, and what he's done already is more impressive than what Babe Ruth ever accomplished, especially when you compare the mound numbers and what he's doing in a single season at the plate. Last year he did not win MVP and he lost out to Aaron Judge, who hit 62 homers. But if you look what Aaron Judge was doing last year around this time, he didn't have 31 homers. So it's, I'm sure that Ohtani in the back of his mind is trying to set an American League record, with his home run hitting. And it's incredible. I don't think we're ever going to see another player like this. I think he's the best player we've ever seen, suit up. And the Angels are fortunate to have him, and it'll be interesting to see, because he's a free agent after this season, what where he goes and what that means for the sport.
And he's from Japan. What a great story. Not to put a damper on things, but we learned today that fellow superstar Mike Trout went on the injured reserve list with a broken hand. Does that mean that Ohtani might get fewer good pitches to hit and maybe slow down his record-breaking year?
I think it's possible. I mean, in 2021, Mike Trout was also hurt for quite a while, and at that point, we saw Ohtani get a lot of walks. I think when he's going well, he's getting walked quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a possibility. But at the same time, I'm not sure how much of a correlation there is to having someone like Mike Trout protecting him in the lineup and what the value of that is for him. At the same, I mean, he's going to get pitches to hit. He's going to hit home runs. He had 46 home runs that year when Trout was out for the vast majority of the season. So I'm sure he'll still get his pitches. I think it'll be interesting to see what it means for him. But the bigger question is, can the Angels make the playoffs now, and can he return, and will he get that opportunity?
What a year to be doing what you do for a living. This must be a lot of fun. Sam, thanks much. We appreciate it. Sam Blum. Still to come from us, the first American woman in space being celebrated today. We're talking about how her influence goes way beyond her space missions. That's coming up next. We're back, and a new statue of Sally Ride, the trailblazing astronaut who became the first American woman in space, unveiled in just the last few hours at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. Now, the library is making the official unveiling of the statue a focus of its July 4th celebration. Take a listen.
As her younger sister, I've always had a sense that she was 7 feet tall, and now I have proof. But here we are looking down over our old home in the San Fernando Valley, remembering her, celebrating the fact that Sally was a trailblazer and to many a hero.
Yeah, Ride was from the L.A. area. She embarked on a 6-day mission in June 1983, operating the shuttle's robotic arm to launch satellites into space. She flew on the shuttle again in 1984. But her contributions to NASA extended beyond her space missions. She worked on outreach efforts for the space program, especially encouraging girls to study math and science and inspiring them to become astronauts. NBC's Aaron McLaughlin joins me now. Aaron, I've had the privilege of emceeing Sally Ride tributes at the Smithsonian with her partner, Tam O'Shaughnessy. She was a trailblazer in so many ways, and more than 50 women have now followed her into space. Talk about the impact she's had on astronauts and space missions then and today.
Yeah, well, I was speaking to her niece, Kate, just earlier this week, and she pointed to a saying that Sally Ride had. She said, you can't be what you can't see. And that's something that Sally Ride, she said, very much lived by, being this trailblazer for any number of female astronauts who followed her, but also sort of being a role model for women in science as well as math. I was at a elementary school here in Los Angeles earlier this week, the Sally Ride Elementary School, and it was really remarkable to sit down with a group of 10-year-old kids and listen to them tell me about Sally Ride, about how inspirational she was to them. One little girl saying, I wanted to be an astronaut because of Sally Ride. It was incredible how many years after that first mission in 1983 that children still look up to Sally Ride to this day. And it's not just girls and women, but also the queer community. That was a point that her niece made to me when we sat down. She said that she has become a beacon of hope. Her own sexuality wasn't made public until after her death. Her partner, Tam. But nevertheless, she has become this symbol of hope, what you can achieve by pushing boundaries for multiple communities.
You know, these historical photographs of these iconic figures are helped because they're in color now, right? So they don't seem so distant. What's the significance of the bronze statue at the library? Why there? Why now?
Well, we put that very question to an information officer at the Reagan Presidential Library, and the officer said that Ronald Reagan and Sally Ride actually had quite a bit in common. They were both 80s icons. They were both Californians, but they also both pushed those boundaries. And it was a point made at that ceremony earlier today, the unveiling of her statue, the only other statue apart from Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan on display at the library. Take a listen to what her sister had to say.
We're all so proud of our California girl, of her courage, her grit, her brilliance, her curiosity, her humor, and her commitment to see to it that all children, both male and female, have the opportunity to reach for the stars.
You heard there her say, Sally Ride, one of Sally Ride's favorite sayings, reach for the stars, but she clearly touched a lot of hearts along the way, Tom.
Yep, she was an icon. Aaron, thank you very much. Finally, from us tonight, becoming an American citizen and on our nation's Independence Day. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people become naturalized U.S. citizens. In 2021 alone, it was more than 800,000 people. Being a part of that ceremony is memorable. It was for my wife. But becoming a naturalized citizen on the 4th of July must be at a whole different level, right? So that's what we heard from some of the 73 people who became U.S. citizens in New Hampshire today. They came from 38 countries, waiting for their name to be called to get their hands on that naturalization certificate, which not only makes them a U.S. citizen, but gives them an important right to vote. So here's some of what we heard from them, these new Americans, on the country's birthday.
Congratulations, everyone. It's been a long process. You know, for me, it's been 5 years to go through the whole thing. Knowing that it's finally here is incredible.
I got married, sorry, the baby, and I used to visit here. I love it here.
Well, I'm so excited and proud to become a U.S. citizenship. It is a amazing country.
We are a nation of immigrants, and
the event that is happening today just reinforces that. We're a melting pot.
It means a lot. It's been here 13 years and I can't wait to become a citizen and be able to vote.
I know a lot of the issues that are going on, and I know a lot of the issues that affect every American and that affects people that look like me. And I think now I can play my part in just trying to make this country better for everyone.
Kind of got to witness the last election, you know, from the outside, without being able to kind of have an input in it, and knowing that I can actually have that input now is incredible.
You know, when my mom started this journey when she left Haiti in 1978, you know, and brought us here, brought me and my sisters here for better opportunity. I just wish that she was here to, you know, to be part of this moment. I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to tear up.
That's a wrap for this hour. Our coverage resumes right now. Top of the hour, you know, we never close. We come on the air with millions of folks all under a whole bunch of different alerts and warnings about this 4th of July, flash floods, extreme heat. We've also got possible shark attacks. We've got our reporters on the ground in New York, also in Miami, to tell us how things are shaping up where they are ahead of some big fireworks shows to close out the holiday. Then in just a few hours, we will hear from the president about some of the greatest issues facing the country as the White House marks Independence Day with its own celebration. What his message could be tonight. And one of the key issues that could come up, gun violence. After a long weekend of deadly shootings across the country yet again, well, we know about more violence overnight in Fort Worth and also in Philadelphia. Then, new tonight, Israeli troops are now withdrawing from a refugee camp in Jenin and the occupied West Bank just hours after a militant attacked people in Tel Aviv, injuring 8 people. Plus, in the tech world, the competition could be heating up with Meta gearing up to launch a new app that sounds a lot like Twitter. We're going to talk about what the new platform could look like and the rather interesting timing of all of this. Hey there, I'm Tom Costello. Happy 4th. We're in today for Hallie. So the question right now at this hour, will millions of Americans get to close out Independence Day celebrations with big fireworks displays lighting up the sky, or could we be rained out? In the Northeast, we've got some isolated storms coming, bringing big risk for flash floods. In Point Pleasant, New Jersey, there on the left, boy, look at that. Kind of an empty beach. You can see clouds rolling in. Some more clouds lingering in New York City as crews get ready for that big Macy's fireworks show, which will kick off in just a few hours. And through the plains, reaching to the Rockies, 13 million people could be under threat of severe storms. You're seeing here some hail already coming down in my home state of Colorado. The lightning put on its own show late last night in the Twin Cities of Minnesota ahead of the celebrations. Big lightning here in D.C. last night, too. If you're not in any of those risk zones, you might be one of 31 million Americans under heat alerts right now. And that's got people all across the country, from South Florida to the Carolinas to Southern Cal, heading to the beach in search of relief. All right, but beware. We've also got elevated warnings and some security and safety concerns along the coastlines because of shark sightings and even some apparent bites. Maybe an attack, more likely a bite. Take a look here. A hammerhead shark spotted off the coast of Surfside, Florida a little earlier, getting real close to a person who was paddle boarding. And on New York's Long Island, emergency responders investigating 2 new reports of people being bitten by sharks today. This after another pair of separate shark attacks involving 2 teens last night at Robert Moses State Beach and a few hours later at Kismet Beach. Both teens expected to recover. So a lot to get to. We've got our teams in place. Antonia Hilton is in Queens, New York, and Guad Venegas is in Miami Beach, Florida. Michelle Grossman's got the weather forecast for us. Antonia, we start with you. People are hoping to see fireworks, not storms in the skies. How are things looking right now?
Tom, it's looking like people here in New York and really around the country are in luck because these are the biggest fireworks in the country. This is Macy's 47th year putting on this show. They say they are one-upping themselves. They're going to be 60,000 shells launched from barges all along the East River behind me here. And the weather has been clearing up. They have been rehearsing a bit down to the left of me here. And so the show seems like it's going to go on. Take a listen to the executive producer talking about what you can expect to see tonight.
Over 70% of our show this year is going to have new animations. So we've got crackling pistols, and we've got new ghost features that are going to have up to 4 different color hues as they cascade their way and make their way down to the water's edge.
And if you're not here in New York City or you're not able to make it to the water, one of the many public parks that are going to have viewing spots for this, you are going to be able to tune into NBC News. And the fireworks are expected to start around 9:25, Tom.
All right, we'll be watching. Antonia Hilton, thank you so much. Let's bring in now Guad Venegas, who has pulled the short straw today. He's on Miami Beach. Guad, you're at exactly the spot that people flock to in extreme heat. Big crowds today?
Correct. Yes. You're talking about people who traveled for the weekend. Miami Beach is the #1 beach city destination, according to Hopper.com, because of the hotels and also the flights that were booked to Miami International Airport. They said, Tom, that they were prepared to service about 1 million passengers throughout this holiday weekend. And yes, we've had crowds in Miami Beach, up and down southern Florida, here in the coastline. Let's also keep in mind that Florida has the most beaches in the continental United States, so it's a big destination for tourists. And we've had conversations with lifeguards here today, because they do have to pay close attention, especially to the tourists that are not too familiar with the heat, with the sun, and of course with the ocean, some of the rip currents that could be dangerous. Here's part of the conversation that I had with one of the lifeguard supervisors earlier today.
Hydration is important. Keep the consumption of alcohol in check. Shade, it's key. If you're dehydrated, and if your consumption has been high, if you go in the water, you're probably going to become a drowning victim.
And Tom, we've been talking about the weather for the last few days. I will say this, it's normally hot in South Florida this time of the year, but it's hotter than usual here. Most of the day today, that sand was too hot for anyone to walk in it barefoot. It has cooled down now as people look forward to the fireworks tonight, Tom.
Yeah, you know, you're getting paid to stand there on Miami Beach. That's not bad, Guad. Listen, let's talk about sharks, though, can we? Because it's also been a hot spot for shark sightings and bites in Florida this year. I learned a few weeks ago, actually, that the odds of being killed by a shark are about 1 in 4 million. You're more likely to die from a vending machine falling over on you. So what more do we know now about the recent bites and attacks? And are folks there on Miami Beach concerned at all?
Tom, let me also add that earlier this week I had a conversation with Dr. Chris Lowe from the Shark Lab at Cal State University in California, Long Beach, who studies sharks. And he also told me you're more likely to win the Powerball, or it's the same to win the Powerball as the probability of getting bit by a shark, just so we get a clear understanding. And I think we have to get good context when we see or when we hear about these shark encounters, because often what's reported is that a shark came nearby a beach, near a swimmer, near a paddleboarder. Earlier, you showed a video of someone in a paddleboard south of us. That was along the shore, but I've been told that that wasn't right off the beach. That was a little inland. And a lot of these encounters have been in areas where these sharks are known to migrate up and down the coast. There's a lot of things we have to think about. Dr. Lowe, when we had this conversation, told me something very interesting, Tom, that sharks often come around people, but sometimes they will learn that humans are not food and they just swim away. So most of the time, sharks come around and they go their way. They are trying to understand why we've had these attacks that have taken place in some places around the country, Tom.
I've been told it's usually mistaken identity. They think it's a seal or something. But Guad, thank you. Guad Venegas, who's, again, pulled the short straw today. All right, let's go to Michelle Grossman, our meteorologist. So I think the lesson is stay away from sharks and vending machines, right, Michelle? Give us a sense of what's going to happen with the weather tonight and the rest of the week.
And Tom, I always say there's a chance, right? There's always a chance. So I don't think I can stay away from the vending machines, but the sharks I can stay away from. As far as the forecast goes, we are looking at scattered conditions and storms all across the East Coast into the middle of the country. So we're stormy, we're showery, we're steamy in spots, but it's all about location, right? So not everyone's seeing it, but if you do see a pop-up storm, you could see a pretty heavy downpours. We're also looking at lots of lightning, especially along the Gulf Coast. All those flashes are lightning strikes into the middle of the country as well, into the high plains, the central plains, the Midwest. Midwest. That's what we're going to be seeing as we go throughout tonight. So this is what it looks like in terms of your severe weather threat. It looks like that will lessen as we go throughout the nighttime hours into the Northeast, even after 7, 8 o'clock. Once that sun starts to settle, giving that power to the storms, we're going to take away that power, which is good news. But still looking at the chance for some storms along the Gulf Coast states into the Carolinas. 13 million people at risk, especially in the Central Plains, portions of the Rockies, winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. That could bring down some trees, also some hail. The few chances for tornadoes. That's not the highest risk, but still not zero. So we need to watch out for that. So the all-important forecast in terms of the fireworks. It looks good for New York City, Boston, D.C. Lots better, a lot better than it did yesterday. It looks like we're going to lose the threat for any pop-up storms after 7, 8 o'clock. We're going to keep the shower and storms in the forecast for portions of the Gulf Coast states. So Atlanta, New Orleans, Dallas, you could see a pop-up storm. But looking towards the west, it's really all about the warmth there. Phoenix, 101. San Francisco, looking really good. 55, may even need a sweatshirt there. 76 in Seattle. It's the middle of the country, Tom, though, that we're looking at the chance for some severe weather and the chance for some really heavy downpours. So Denver probably taking those celebrations indoor. Back to you.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much. Michelle Grossman. This long holiday weekend has been marred once again by deadly shootings in Pennsylvania and in Texas. In Fort Worth, police say at least 3 people were killed and more than a dozen wounded in 2 separate shootings. One shooting occurred just after midnight at a 4th of July party attended by several hundred people. Arriving police found multiple victims in a parking lot. 3 of them died. A suspect has not been identified. In an apparent unrelated incident, 3 adult men were injured when a large group fight led to a shootout between at least 2 gunmen. And in Philadelphia, police say a man is now in custody after a gunman wearing a bulletproof vest opened fire in a neighborhood, killing 5 people, wounding 2 others. The surviving victims are in stable condition. 2 other people injured by shattered glass. These latest shootings come after a mass shooting in Baltimore over the weekend that left 2 dead, 28 injured. A nightclub shooting in Wichita, Kansas, 9 injured there. And a shooting at a block party in Indianapolis left 1 person dead and 4 others injured. We've got team coverage on that for all of us with NBC's Rahema Ellis in New York. We start, though, with NBC's Priscilla Thompson in Texas. Priscilla, can you give us an update now on the suspect that they are looking for, or suspects, in the Fort Worth shooting?
Yeah, Tom, suspects, according to the Fort Worth police, they released an update just a short while ago saying that they understand that it was perhaps several unknown males that fired indiscriminately into this crowd of people and then fled the scene. And, of course, this happened after a 4th of July block party had wrapped up in this neighborhood on the west side of the city, and folks had gathered in another part of the neighborhood. Tons of people. This is a crime scene that spans multiple blocks, and police really describing a chaotic scene when they arrived, that there were vehicles everywhere, there were people on foot everywhere. They were able to arrive at a parking lot where they found multiple shooting victims, but they also found victims sort of within this space. One officer had to transport a victim to an ambulance in a patrol car because they couldn't get to the ambulances in. So just a sense of the chaos as all of this unfolded, as folks were trying to celebrate the 4th of July, Tom.
A block party, that would suggest victims of all ages, right?
Yeah, so we don't know all of the ages of the victims, but what police have said is that there were 11 victims in all, 3 people killed, 8 others who were injured and hospitalized, and at least one of those victims was a juvenile. And we heard the mayor of Fort Worth talking about how devastating this is to this community, and that even losing 1 life is too many. I want to play a little bit of what she had to say.
But it's senseless, man. You know, you had people come in to a family environment with guns and start shooting randomly. And we've got to be better than this as a community. And I know Fort Worth can be a better example, but my heart is broken today.
And important note, the Fort Worth police say that none of the victims are suspects. They believe that these were just innocent people who were killed in this incident and injured in this incident. And the police are saying that they're going to have heightened security, more officers out today as folks are out celebrating the 4th of July holiday in the wake of these 2 shootings that occurred yesterday. Tom?
Okay, Priscilla, thank you very much. Let's now move to Rahema Ellis, who's in New York following the mass shooting in Philadelphia. And Rahema, police held a press conference just a short time ago. What did we learn?
Tom, we learned that there is no holiday from violence in America. What authorities told us is that they have a suspect in custody, a 40-year-old man, as you mentioned in the lead-in to Priscilla and myself. And that suspect, they say, left 4 people dead on the streets of Philadelphia, wounding 2 others, and one of them as young as a toddler, a 2-year-old. The 2 children, one was 2 years old, the other was 13 years old. The 4 people they found on the street, however, they said several hours later, they found another victim at home. Listen to what police say about that victim that they found, which may tell them something about motive. Take a listen.
We believe the deceased victim at the location inside of 1600 South 56th Street was the first shooting victim. However, due to the victim being home alone, the victim was not discovered by family members until hours after the incident.
So one of the things we're hearing, Tom, is that the last person they found was the first person whom they believe was shot. And therefore, they don't think necessarily that that was random. But when that suspect left that person's home, a 31-year-old man, they say the suspect then went out into the street and randomly fired upon people. He was wearing a ski mask, according to authorities, armed with an AR-15, a handgun, another gun. And they say he was also wearing a bulletproof vest and had a police scanner. Loaded with that kind of equipment, authorities say it appears as though this person was intending to do harm and managed to do that. The victims, those 5 men who were killed, one was a teenager, 15 years old. The dead victims, all males, ranging in age from 15 to 59. What is the motive for this? Everyone wants to know that. Police aren't quite sure yet. They have not charged the person. However, they say it's likely that there will be murder charges, aggravated assault, that the charges could come from authorities in the state, but federal charges might also be involved. They're also telling us that we might learn more when there's a preliminary arraignment they expect will come tomorrow. Tom?
To your point, no holiday from violence, and this country has a problem with gun violence. We will continue to cover these mass shootings and detail every one of them as we try to search for answers. Rahima, thank you. At this hour, President Biden is at the White House hosting a July 4th barbecue, part of a full day of events to mark the nation's independence. But this holiday interrupted a bit by a potential legal setback for the president. Just this afternoon, a federal judge barred parts of the administration from contacting local social media platforms about online content. The ruling came in response to a lawsuit brought by Republican-led states alleging that the White House went too far in its efforts to curb content that challenged vaccines or threatened elections. The judge said certain departments should not reach out to companies like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram for, quote, the purpose of urging, encouraging, pressuring, or inducing any manner the removal, deletion, suppression, or reduction of content containing protected free speech. The ruling singles out several departments, including Department of Justice, State, the CDC, and the HHS. NBC's Mike Memoli is at the White House right now on this holiday. And Mike, the president has made combating disinformation a big part of his agenda. Is this judge's ruling a blow to that effort, and what does it mean for the future?
Well, Tom, it's at least a temporary blow. Of course, this is just a district court ruling. It may have a long legal road ahead as it works its way up the ladder here, but it is certainly counter to what the administration was trying to do here, at least as it relates to COVID-19 and combating misinformation. This case really has at its roots something called the Twitter files. You may remember that author Matt Taibbi, working with the new owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, talked about a trove of internal documents which revealed Biden administration officials, primarily in the public health space, flagging specific posts and content that was circulating on that platform that they thought should be potentially removed or flagged as disinformation, concerned about what the public impact could be. That Twitter files was really something that caught fire among Republicans, including the Republicans who brought this case, and they found a district court judge, a federal judge, who agreed with them. But in agreeing with them, he also laid out areas in which the administration could and could not continue to interact with social media companies. They couldn't ask to restrict or censor content, but they could flag areas where they thought there was a potential crimes being committed. So we did hear from a White House official who said that they have taken, in their view, some responsible actions to protect public health, safety, and security. But they also said that they have been working with these social media companies who they feel have a critical responsibility here to take into account the effects their platforms are having on the American people. But look at that, to make independent choices, not ones that are being dictated by the White House in those cases. So we'll see where this leads. But it's also worth noting, Tom, that Twitter Files case also revealed an instance, at least one, in which a Trump White House official reached out to Twitter trying to remove a post that was critical of the former president at the time.
Okay, bipartisan there. Listen, I want to ask you also about the news breaking out of the White House in the last couple of hours that a white substance tested positive for cocaine was found in a secure area of the West Wing by the Secret Service. What can you tell us about where the cocaine was found, and what is the next step now in this investigation? And was the family was the president or his family in the White House at the time?
Yeah, Tom, we've been reporting on this throughout the day, and some new information which just came in from our colleague Kelly O'Donnell, which helps clarify the specific location in the White House in which this was discovered. We had reported earlier in the day it was found in a working space of the West Wing. O'Donnell's sources are telling her that it was found in a common space in the West Wing, an area where people, including potential visitors or guests to the West Wing coming for tours or other meetings, may often leave their personal belongings when they go into the West Wing. And so this is now an investigation which is being led by the Secret Service to determine who may have brought this in. But they acknowledge as they reveal this that it may be difficult to determine that. Even if they look at things like visitor logs or security camera footage, this was an area where so many people are coming in and out that it might be hard to pin down. We should note, though, this was discovered on a Sunday, a holiday weekend, and one in which the president and his family was out of town. The president, the first lady, and their son Hunter, as well as his family, had traveled to Camp David for the weekend, only returned this morning for those 4th of July festivities at the White House. But there's certainly high levels of interest inside and outside the White House, Tom, as you'd imagine, in determining who may have brought what we understand is a very small amount of potentially cocaine into the West Wing.
Mike Memoli at the White House. Thank you, Mike. Breaking news now out of the Middle East. The Israeli military says it's begun withdrawing troops from a militant stronghold in the West Bank, winding down an intense 2-day military operation that killed at least 12 Palestinians. And it comes after at least 8 people in Tel Aviv were injured when a man drove his car into a crowd of pedestrians at a busy shopping center. Palestinian militant groups calling that attack a heroic response to Israeli raids on the Jenin refugee camp. NBC's Matt Bradley joining us now from Jerusalem. Matt, what more are we learning about Israel's withdrawal of its troops and the timeline?
Yeah, well, we just heard that just now, actually, Tom. And, you know, we think we saw some of the last gasps of this raid, this really what was the largest raid in the West Bank by the Israelis in probably 20 years, ever since the Second Intifada. So, you know, this was a momentous event, and we can't forget just how big this was. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is now in power once again with a very right-wing government, with right-wing ministers, all of whom seem to be celebrating this move. So, you know, the real issue here is whether or not this is going to be spreading or adding to violence. Right now, we've seen this isolated not only just in the city of Jenin, and I'm in the West Bank right now, not far from Jenin, but whether or not this is going to involve other groups. We heard that you mentioned that Palestinian groups, militant groups, had celebrated this attack in Tel Aviv. That was specifically Hamas, which runs the Gaza Strip. Now, if Hamas decides to retaliate more, as they have in the past, by firing missiles into Israel, that could be a major risk of escalation. Tom?
In the meantime, the prime minister is promising more that could come, right? More operations. Where do things go from here?
That's right. He basically called this a success, mission accomplished, and said that if you know, there is a need, that they will go back into a place like Jenin or maybe elsewhere in the West Bank. That's unclear. So they could be also escalating a fear of escalation from the Israeli side. So I don't think that even though we're seeing these Israeli troops pulling out of Jenin after this extraordinary operation, I don't think we've seen the end of the violence here, and this could easily flare up once again.
Matt Bradley in Jerusalem. Thanks, Matt. Coming up, new warnings tonight around CTE, what we're learning about the first female pro athlete diagnosed with that degenerative brain disease. Plus, stamps about to get more expensive. We'll tell you why. That's coming up in our 5 things. We're back, bottom of the hour. New developments in the tech world today in what looks like a direct shot at competing with Twitter. Facebook's Meta is gearing up to launch a new conversation app called Threads this Thursday. Meta describes the app as Instagram's text-based conversation app. And it seems like Mark Zuckerberg is trying to strike while Twitter is down, you could say. News of the launch comes after a series of chaotic changes at Elon Musk's Twitter, including his decision to limit the number of tweets users can view in one day. Unverified users only able to read about 1,000 tweets a day. That's all? I don't know. While verified users, the ones who pay for that blue check mark, they can see up to 10,000 posts a day. The move has outraged a lot of Twitter fans. You can see a preview of Threads right here. Keep your username, find your followers, connect to your conversations, and share your point of view. That sounds familiar, right? That's how Meta is now branding its new approach. Let's bring in NBC's Steve Patterson for more on all of this. So, Steve, first of all, I don't know how, if you're viewing 1,000 or 10,000 tweets a day, you can do anything else with your day. But can you compare this Threads app to Twitter? Is it going to pull Twitter users away? And what is this talk about Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg getting into a cage fight, but maybe now something else that's a little more civil? Do they hate each other this much?
Look, first of all, it's the fight that everybody's talking about that nobody is actually sure it's going to happen. They actually were jibing back and forth over the internet about an actual MMA-style fight. That's the physical fight that, may not materialize, but it sure is interesting to talk about, right? The real fight is online. It's in the digital space. It's the fight for your mind share, the fight for your phone, the fight in the boardroom over market share. That's what these two are really fighting about, and I think that's the more interesting topic. So, Threads. It is supposed to be, as you laid out, just like Twitter as far as we know. We don't know a lot because it's not out yet. It comes out on Thursday, right? But people are finding that they can go to that app store and they can kind of pre-download it. And it's supposed to be, according to what everybody's seen in pictures, just like Twitter, almost like a carbon copy or show. And I think it points to the fact that the fight is really about the fact that these two tech giants are sort of waning in their own way. And a lot of these tech operators that have systems that are sort of Twitter-likes are smelling blood in the water, and Zuckerberg is one of them. After all these controversies with Musk in the workplace, with limiting the views now, putting everything behind a paywall is sort of a big one, and that's sort of the reason why these things may be coinciding, people feel. Zuckerberg feels like he can step in and say, hey, here's an alternative. It's called Threads. It's great. He pitched it as a sanely run platform. That is a literal quote from Zuckerberg. So you can tell sort of where the focus is. Will it work? We don't know. I think we're going to learn a whole lot more on Thursday from the announcement and find out if people are actually willing to trade off. But you're talking about a space in Twitter that has such a huge market share. So many people are on it. So many people's lives and work lives are embedded with it. I think it's going to be a difficult task, but he's not starting from zero. This is Instagram threaded into this new app that could already have a built-in user base. Tom, we'll have to see.
Big egos. I don't know. Zuckerberg looks more ripped to me than Musk. I'd put my money on Zuckerberg. But listen, Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey tweeted a pic of the data that users will have to share for Threads, to which Elon Musk replied, highlighting it to his 150 million followers. So is Twitter's private policy really any different? And do consumers even care about privacy at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, they are different as far as sort of the direct way that Facebook collects data and shares it versus more the indirect way that Twitter may do it. But I mean, as far as you and I are concerned, we should all know that all of these tech companies have something on us. They're all collecting our data. Do people care? I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're in a new sort of digital age where you have these digital natives and Generation Z that is coming up. They just want a user-friendly interface to where they can interface their content in an easy way. And I think that's what these tech companies have found. That's the way they operate. And collecting data is big business. I think they're going to do it regardless of the stink that we all raise. Tom?
All right, buddy. Thank you. Steve Patterson following the cage fight out there in L.A. Let's get you over right now to the 5 things, our team things that you should know about. Number 1, NATO's Secretary General is staying on the job for another year. Norwegian Jens Stoltenberg's term has now been extended through October 24. He's been in office since 2014, making him the second longest serving Secretary General. NATO was supposed to name a successor in about a week, but the countries could not agree unanimously on a replacement, and they all really love Jens. Number 2, for the first time, CTE, that's chronic traumatic encephalopathy, that has been diagnosed in a female professional athlete. As you know, it's a degenerative brain disease that many experts believe is caused by repeated head injuries. The latest Australian rules football player, Heather Anderson, was diagnosed with CTE. Experts say it could lead to a greater focus on researching that ailment in women. Number 3, take a look at this. The Ubinas volcano is spewing ash in Peru. Explosions up to 1,800 feet high. It's the most active volcano in Peru. More than 2 million, make that 2,000 people, live in nearby villages. Shelter houses have now been set up for the evacuees. Number 4, stamp prices are up. First class forever stamps will be 66 cents starting Sunday. That's up from 63 cents. And it's the second stamp price hike this year. They last went up in January. Now, the U.S. Postal Service is citing rising operational costs and a, quote, previously defective pricing model. Other mail services will also get more expensive on Sunday. Number 5, Brazilian soccer star Neymar was fined more than $3 million over renovations at his mansion outside Rio de Janeiro. He's been accused of illegally building an artificial lake, which authorities there say violates local environmental rules, but he can appeal. When we come back, it's a day that's filled with emotion, heartbreak, but also resilience in Illinois. How Highland Park is marking 1 year since that deadly 4th of July shooting there. Stay with us. We're back. The city of Highland Park, Illinois, is today marking 1 year since that senseless 4th of July mass shooting at a parade that killed 7 and injured dozens.
This is a day filled with emotion. Well, I am so proud of how our community has supported one another these last 12 months and today.
The community is gathering for remembrance and a walk, and later, instead of a fireworks show, which can be triggering for some survivors of gun violence, there will instead be a drone show.
I've never liked loud noises. I now really don't like loud noises. But I definitely see myself kind of looking over, being more careful, more aware of my surroundings, because you never know what's going to happen. I didn't expect this to happen in Highland Park. No one did.
NBC's Jesse Kirsch is in Highland Park for us. Jesse, this massacre really scarred that community, right?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. 7 people were killed, dozens were injured in this shooting, which again occurred on July 4th in the middle of an Independence Day parade. And I think it came into clarity for me on the drive over here and seeing a family walking by with 2 little girls with, I believe one of them had on, a stick-on tattoo of an American flag and headbands. Again, you can imagine families like that would have been coming here last year for a similar celebration, having no idea what was going to unfold. People had shirts on today memorializing what this community went through, but there were also the stars and stripes on display. And I think that really gets to what today was about here, was about remembering the lives lost, honoring the lives forever changed, but at the same time, not letting what a gunman did here define this community. And that is something that we heard from officials as well as from some people in this community. Here's what one person had to say earlier.
The last thing I want is for this to ruin a great tradition. I don't want the kid that did this to win. I want us to be able to go back and celebrate, but it will never be quite the same.
So again, Tom, a blend of memories on what is a forever changed holiday in this community.
You know, and Highland Park is just the latest community that has had to take steps to try to move forward and walk that fine line, as he just suggested, right? So what else have they done? This is an important, poignant day, but what other steps have they taken over the last year?
Yeah, and more broadly here in the state of Illinois, there is now an assault weapons ban that was passed and signed by the governor. That is something that has been going through the federal courts system. And while all that's unfolding, on the one-year anniversary of the shooting here in Highland Park, there's a renewed push by some in this community for a federal assault weapons ban. So similar conversations we hear, unfortunately, far too often in this country, Tom.
Indeed, Jesse, thank you very much. Jesse Kirsch for us. Coming up tonight, millions of Americans are traveling today. Gas prices are down, but that's not all good news. What you should know before hitting the road. Plus, why roller coaster riders in Wisconsin were stuck. Look at that. Upside down for hours. Talk about a nosebleed. That's later in the local. Welcome back. Of course, the 4th of July means massive travel numbers, and today it's expected that more than 50 million Americans are traveling one way or the other for the holiday. Over 4 million taking flights over this extended period. We've talked about that nightmare scenario playing out at airports around the country. So is it better to be driving instead? Some 40 million people hitting the roads over the extended period. This year, gas prices are working in their favor. Take a look at the numbers. Gas prices way down from last year when the average pump price was almost $5 a gallon. This week, the average is about $3.50 a gallon. Now, that's a welcome relief amid stubborn inflation numbers. To be clear, it's not the cheapest prices have ever been. They're still higher than 2 years ago. So how will this all play out over the rest of the summer? We bring in now Clint Henderson, managing editor at The Point Sky. Can you give us a sense now? What's the travel outlook for the rest of the summer? And by the way, gas prices are going down, so people may be taking advantage of that, but other aspects of travel are still pretty expensive, right?
Yeah, it's actually not only sold out this summer, but it's also really expensive. Now, gas prices are helping a little bit. In fact, airlines are seeing cheaper fuel prices, which eventually could mean slightly smaller ticket prices for passengers. But in general, it's boomtown USA when it comes to travel.
All right, now back to the gas prices here. They're cheaper than a year ago, but, you know, I'm a bit of a geek on this stuff, and I looked up the inflation-adjusted gas prices numbers, and we actually paid more in the 1980s. I mean, even in the late 70s, all the way through the 80s, we paid more on an inflation-adjusted basis. But this is a pocketbook issue that hits everybody every day, right? So how can we save at the pump? Are we talking special credit cards, different car rentals? What do you recommend?
Oh, there's all kinds of tools in the toolbox, and it's kind of fun to try to maximize the discounts. You can stack things. There's all kinds of tricks you can do. First thing I would say is if you go to the same gas station over and over, make sure you're signed up for their rewards program. Shell has a fuel rewards program. You just want to make sure if you're joining those programs that you're not paying more at the pump just to go to a certain brand of gas station. So watch that. But you can also get a credit card that gives you cash back or points back for gas purchases. That's a way to put something back in your pocket for all that money you're spending on gas. And then there's apps like Gas Buddy. You can even just do a Google search, cheapest gas. There's all kinds of ways you can find the best price per gallon. And then if you stack that with a fuel rewards program and a credit card, you're maximizing your spend. Also, those big box retailers, a lot of them have gas programs where gas is substantially cheaper. So there's things to do out there.
I was around in the 80s, I remember, and it costs a lot of money to fill up my little car. But anyway, the times, they keep rolling on. Clint, thank you. Clint Henderson, managing editor at The Point Sky. NBC covers hundreds of stories each day. Because you couldn't possibly read, watch, or listen to all of them, our bureau teams have done it for you and for me. This is what they tell us is going on in their regions. We call this segment The Local. So from our Northeast Bureau, a woman from Massachusetts who was reported missing was rescued after she was found stuck in the mud at a state park. Police say she'd been trapped, apparently, for a long time, for days before hikers found her. Police got to her with their ATVs. They said she was conscious and alert when they pulled her out. From our Midwest Bureau, Wisconsin, actually, imagine this, stuck upside down for hours on a roller coaster. The coaster just stopped mid-ride, that according to our local affiliate. Emergency crews rescued the riders. The fire department says there was a mechanical failure, even though the ride was recently inspected by the state. And back out to our Northeast Bureau again. The show must go on, right? Or at least the hot dog eating contest. After a rain delay, superstar Joey Chestnut ate his way to another win at Nathan's famous 4th of July hot dog eating contest on Coney Island. Where else? He downed 62 hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes. Miki Sudo won the women's contest, 39.5 hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes. A memory to relish for another 12 months. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's also not the 4th of July without baseball. And right now, you know, we can't talk about baseball without talking about Angel superstar Shohei Ohtani. He's really one of a kind, a top pitcher and a record-setting power hitter. He's having a season that we've pretty much never seen before. Check this out. He hit 15 homers in June alone. That's a team record. And he's just now the second Major League Baseball player ever to hit 30 or more home runs and 5 or more triples before the All-Star break. The other player, the legendary Willie Mays, 1954. And he's also an ace on the mound. Now, he's got 7 wins on the season and earned a run average of 3.02 and 127 strikeouts, third in all of baseball. Joining me now to talk about all of this, making the season, is Sam Blum, staff writer for The Atlantic, who covers Ohtani and the Angels. Sam, can you put some of these stats in context for us, especially those of us who don't follow baseball as closely as you do? How remarkable is this guy's performance?
I mean, it's unprecedented, and you mentioned Willie Mays just in that last segment, and I think that's the thing with Ohtani. It's interesting, everything kind of transcends what we're as baseball fans, as baseball reporters, people that just watch the game, kind of just how crazy it is. It transcends the game. You can mention him in the same breath as Babe Ruth, but I think you could also make a very good case that he's had, and what he's done already is more impressive than what Babe Ruth ever accomplished, especially when you compare the mound numbers and what he's doing in a single season at the plate. Last year he did not win MVP and he lost out to Aaron Judge, who hit 62 homers. But if you look what Aaron Judge was doing last year around this time, he didn't have 31 homers. So it's, I'm sure that Ohtani in the back of his mind is trying to set an American League record, with his home run hitting. And it's incredible. I don't think we're ever going to see another player like this. I think he's the best player we've ever seen, suit up. And the Angels are fortunate to have him, and it'll be interesting to see, because he's a free agent after this season, what where he goes and what that means for the sport.
And he's from Japan. What a great story. Not to put a damper on things, but we learned today that fellow superstar Mike Trout went on the injured reserve list with a broken hand. Does that mean that Ohtani might get fewer good pitches to hit and maybe slow down his record-breaking year?
I think it's possible. I mean, in 2021, Mike Trout was also hurt for quite a while, and at that point, we saw Ohtani get a lot of walks. I think when he's going well, he's getting walked quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a possibility. But at the same time, I'm not sure how much of a correlation there is to having someone like Mike Trout protecting him in the lineup, and what the value of that is for him. At the same, I mean, he's going to get pitches to hit. He's going to hit home runs. He had 46 home runs that year when Trout was out for the vast majority of the season. So I'm sure he'll still get his pitches. I think it'll be interesting to see what it means for him. But the bigger question is, can the Angels make the playoffs now, and can he return, and will he get that opportunity?
What a year to be doing what you do for a living. This must be a lot of fun. Sam, thanks much. We appreciate it. Sam Blum. Still to come from us, the first American woman in space being celebrated today. We're talking about how her influence goes way beyond her space missions. That's coming up next. We're back, and a new statue of Sally Ride, the trailblazing astronaut who became the first American woman in space, unveiled in just the last few hours at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. Now, the library is making the official unveiling of the statue a focus of its July 4th celebration. Take a listen.
As her younger sister, I've always had a sense that she was 7 feet tall, and now I have proof. But here we are looking down over our old home in the San Fernando Valley, remembering her, celebrating the fact that Sally was a trailblazer and to many a hero.
Yeah, Ride was from the L.A. area. She embarked on a 6-day mission in June 1983, operating the shuttle's robotic arm to launch satellites into space. She flew on the shuttle again in 1984. But her contributions to NASA extended beyond her space missions. She worked on outreach efforts for the space program, especially encouraging girls to study math and science and inspiring them to become astronauts. NBC's Aaron McLaughlin joins me now. Aaron, I've had the privilege of emceeing Sally Ride tributes at the Smithsonian with her partner, Tam O'Shaughnessy. She was a trailblazer in so many ways, and more than 50 women have now followed her into space. Talk about the impact she's had on astronauts and space missions then and today.
Yeah, well, I was speaking to her niece, Kate, just earlier this week, and she pointed to a saying that Sally Ride had. She said, you can't be what you can't see. And that's something that Sally Ride, she said, very much lived by, being this trailblazer for any number of female astronauts who followed her, but also sort of being a role model for women in science as well as math. I was at a elementary school here in Los Angeles earlier this week, the Sally Ride Elementary School, and it was really remarkable to sit down with a group of 10-year-old kids and listen to them tell me about Sally Ride, about how inspirational she was to them. One little girl saying, I wanted to be an astronaut because of Sally Ride. It was incredible how many years after that first mission in 1983 that children still look up to Sally Ride to this day. And it's not just girls and women, but also the queer community. That was a point that her niece made to me when we sat down. She said that she has become a beacon of hope. Her own sexuality wasn't made public until after her death. Her partner, Tam. But nevertheless, she has become this symbol of hope, what you can achieve by pushing boundaries for multiple communities.
You know, these historical photographs of these iconic figures are helped because they're in color now, right? So they don't seem so distant. What's the significance of the bronze statue at the library? Why there? Why now?
Well, we put that very question to an information officer at the Reagan Presidential Library, and the officer said that Ronald Reagan and Sally Ride actually had quite a bit in common. They were both 80s icons. They were both Californians, but they also both pushed those boundaries. And it was a point made at that ceremony earlier today, the unveiling of her statue, the only other statue apart from Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan on display at the library. Take a listen to what her sister had to say.
We're all so proud of our California girl, of her courage, her grit, her brilliance, her curiosity, her humor, and her commitment to see to it that all children, both male and female, have the opportunity to reach for the stars.
You heard there her say, Sally Ride, one of Sally Ride's favorite sayings, reach for the stars, but she clearly touched a lot of hearts along the way, Tom.
Yep, she was an icon. Aaron, thank you very much. Finally, from us tonight, becoming an American citizen and on our nation's Independence Day. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people become naturalized U.S. citizens. In 2021 alone, it was more than 800,000 people. Being a part of that ceremony is memorable. It was for my wife. But becoming a naturalized citizen on the 4th of July must be at a whole different level, right? So that's what we heard from some of the 73 people who became U.S. citizens in New Hampshire today. They came from 38 countries, waiting for their name to be called to get their hands on that naturalization certificate, which which not only makes them a U.S. citizen, but gives them an important right to vote. So here's some of what we heard from them, these new Americans, on the country's birthday.
Congratulations, everyone.
It's been a long process. You know, for me, it's been 5 years to go through the whole thing. Knowing that it's finally here is incredible.
I got married, sorry, the baby, and I used to visit here. I love it here.
Well, I'm so excited and probably to become a U.S. citizenship. It is a amazing country.
We are a nation of immigrants, and the event that is happening today just reinforces that. We're a melting pot.
It means a lot. It's been here 13 years, and I can't wait to become a citizen and be able to vote.
I know a lot of the issues that are going on, and I know a lot of the issues that affect every American, and that affects people that look like me. And I think now I can play my part in just trying to make this country better for everyone.
Kind of got to witness the last election, you know, from the outside, without being able to kind of have an input in it, and knowing that I can actually have that input now is incredible.
You know, when my mom started this journey, when she left Haiti in 1978, you know, and brought us here, brought me and my sisters here for better opportunity. I just wish that she was here to, you know, to be part of this moment. I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to tear up.
That's a wrap for this hour. Our coverage resumes right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.